Hello class from rainy New Hampshire here. So my part of the project, I am working on the sustainability of brake pads, and my one idea was reusing old brake pad backing plates. So a garage, a brake shop would have to collect backing plates and then send them back to us for reprocessing and re-implementation. So this would reduce a lot of the materials used. It would make it so we didn't have to make new backing plates, which is always good. And the one thing is it would require a standardized sizing chart or whatever for backing plates. So to process them, I would suggest using abrasive blasting, which is sandblasting or anything like that. And the specific one I would say to use would be hydroblasting, which is just a stream of water, basically cutting off anything that's left on there. So it's a high pressure stream of water between 10 and 40,000 psi. And it just kind of cuts everything, gets all loose particles or anything like that off of it. And so, yeah. And this process can be totally automated. They would just go through a machine and that's it. So then you'd have to clean them. First step in cleaning would be an alkali wash, which would get off any grease or anything like that that's left on there, motor oil, brake fluid, things like that. Then you'd have to rinse it to, just a thorough rinse to finish that process up. Then an acid wash, which removes any ionic compounds. And then another rinse, and then finally you would do corrosion resistance, where you would add a layer of oxidization, because if you don't do that, the metal's very reactive, and so you have to oxidize a layer so that no other part of it can be oxidized underneath that layer. Okay, so another way to improve the sustainability of brake pad production would be to reduce energy use in the factory. So there's a lot of big ways to do that, and there's also some small ways that are pretty easy to implement. First would be a smart lighting technique, where you would have lights that would, say there's a part of the factory that's not being worked in for many hours. Well, turn the lights off in there. You could have a computer do that. Motion sensors on bathrooms, things like that. Just little things that over time, if those lights are always on, it just adds up to a lot of money. Another thing is eliminating energy waste. A lot of times at a factory there will be maybe an air line or a water line that's leaking a little bit, and every little leak like that builds up over time and just adds up. And if you can go through once a week, just check for any leaks in the air lines or any inefficiencies in the machines, patch those up real quickly. You're going to save a lot of money in that regard, and obviously reduce emissions and keep your pollution down. So and another thing is, in winter, all these machines, they don't run at 100% efficiency, so they're going to be giving off a lot of heat. If you can use a fan to recirculate that heat, that's that much more you save on heating costs. So, and then of course, getting a little more expensive option would be getting more efficient, newer machines, which meet the newest standards in efficiency. So, and then another thing, instead of, on top of reducing your energy consumption, is you can add things like solar panels and wind turbines to your roof, or try to move the factory to an area that uses more renewable energy to gain their power. Okay, and another big thing with brake pads right now, and the problem with them, is that they have copper in them, and as a brake pad wears down, it gives off dust. I'm sure you've all seen it in your wheels. So as it's giving off dust, you're going to want to, or some of that dust is going to get into the water system and get into the drinking water. And what happened was in the early 90s in California and Washington, they were having trouble trying to get they're having trouble with too much copper in their water, and they weren't meeting the standards required by the Clean Water Act. So they've enacted laws that by 2018 in Washington and 2025 in California, you're going to have less than 0.5% copper in your brake pads, because they figured out that brake pads is the reason that the water was getting into the copper was getting into the water system. So a replacement must be found, and they're working on that now. Some metals will work, but the thing about copper is it's great because it transfers heat well. It deals with sound and vibration very well. It retains its structure in cold weather situations, so braking isn't lost as much as it would be in cold weather situations if you have copper. So the challenge is to try to find a substance that you can use, maybe a metal, maybe a composite. It might have to be a mix of a few different substances, because this is, brake pads are powder, powder kind of bound together. So a solution is going to have to be found for copper. People are working on that, but that's going to be one of the bigger challenges for brake pad manufacturers coming up. So, thank you very much.